Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation. I am Owen James. This is your latest Rangers news here on this channel, guys. Obviously, smash that sub. Right, look, not a lot of transfer news around at the moment. And something Philippe Clement said got me thinking. Now, he said a lot that we have two transfer strategies. We have transfer strategy A, transfer strategy B. It depends very much on, obviously, qualification for the Champions League. And that got me thinking about, timescales. It got me thinking about where we're going with the club. It got me thinking about, all those different things. Now, I'm fully aware there are factors determining our transfer policy going in towards the 30th of August. There's a whole lot of things. And we're going to talk about those on this video. I want to get your thoughts and opinions on that. Now, just before we do that, I want to just sort of hip you up to sort of timescales, where we're up to with timescales for things at this moment in time. So this is where we're at this moment in time. So we've obviously just played our first qualifying round, our third qualifying round, first leg in Poland against Dynamo Kiev. So we know that the next round, the next leg is at the 13th of August at Hampden Park. So we know that's the situation. If we progress from that, which, there's every chance, we've put ourselves in a great position to do that, thanks to Cyril Dessa's goal. To progress, we've got to obviously win the game at Hampden Park and go through to play Salzburg or Twente. And as I've said on a number of occasions, not wanting to get too far ahead of myself, the team that we face in the next round in either Red Bull Salzburg or Twente Ascende are in no way in the same class or the same league as that PSV Eindhoven team that we faced last year in the playoff round. So the playoff round first leg is the 20th of August and the second leg is the 27th of August, and the transfer window closes on the 30th of August. Now, I know around that there are a whole lot of other factors that will depend on the transfer strategy. I'm going to talk about those in the video. So please don't stop watching the video now and say, yeah, but what about the big squad? What about sell to buy? What about this? What about the wages? What about this? What about FFP? I'm going to cover all that. So, stop trying to look like I know it all. So this is where we're up to. So let's say that our transfer strategy for the rest of this window is dependent on whether or not we qualify for the Champions League, which therefore means if we were to qualify for the Champions League, we wouldn't find out until the 27th of August whether or not we're going to qualify. So that would mean on the 28th of August, we'd therefore be able to go with transfer strategy A, which is going down the route of being in the Champions League. So being able to use Champions League money to acquire talent to compete in the Champions League, which gives you the 28th, the 29th, and the 30th, 3 days to conclude your business, which is going to be one hell of a rush and one hell of a tight push, especially when you consider that on the 1st of September, we play the first Old Firm game against Celtic, and we all know Philippe Clement doesn't seem to think that players that sign are ready to start straight away, that they've got obviously IKEA furniture to build or flights to take or wallpapering to do or painting to do or wicks to go to. I don't know what they've got to do. That's the strategy. So the window is very, very small. Now, let's say, for example, we get through this round and we don't qualify for the playoff round. So therefore we go down strategy B. Well, that gives us slightly longer to prepare, but would mean that I think we have slightly less money. So how much are we prepared to spend? Is it solely, dependent on getting rid of players? Can we therefore get rid of players? Will we be able to get rid of them in time, etc., etc.? So, this strategy that we seem to have been embarking on that depends on Champions League money, that depends on us qualifying for the Champions League, strategy A, strategy B, is a bit of a flawed one, in my opinion, because it gives you 3 days, basically, to sort a strategy out if you qualify for the Champions League for signing players. Now, surely a strategy should have been put in place before this, disregarding whether we qualify for the Champions League, disregarding whatever happened. A strategy that was more carefully planned out on squad reduction size, wage bill reduction, on better contract management, on better financial controls, on better income revenue streams coming into the club. These are all strategies that should have been put in place. Now, I think a lot of this has fallen by the wayside because of the departure of James Bisgrove to Saudi Arabia. We don't have a CEO in charge of the club at this moment in time. At time of recording on the 8th of August, we don't have a CEO. At this moment in time, the CEO position is partly being done by John Bennett, and he's making an absolute pig's ear of it. I think, it's quite categorical to say, and I challenge anybody to an argument over this, that John Bennett is running this club in an absolutely shambolic way. So, where are we up to with this strategy, with this move forward? And for me, one of the things that should have been done in May was there should have been a real sit down, a proper, not the one that they had, a genuine sit down with a clear plan for A, clearing the squad, B, reducing the wages, C, sorting the contracts, D, working on revenue streams, income revenue streams, E, making sure that stadium rebuilds and stadium non-completion plans were in place, and then budgetary plans made and lists drawn up of players to be signed. There should have been a clear strategy put in place. There should have been a sit down between the CEO and then between the manager and Niels Koppen. Okay, no point there should John Bennett be involved, Mr. Park Jr., whatever he's called, probably as muppety as his dad, whoever. There should have been a clear strategy between people who know how to run a business and how to run a football club, okay, which is very different to running an actual proper business. Now, to me, there is no clear strategy there. There is a very chaotic strategy around this club. I would say it's as far as rebuild chaos at this moment in time. Now, knowing that what we knew, that going into this window, there was a need to rebuild this squad. There was a need to, as Philippe Clement put, come to the end of a cycle and restart a cycle. There are always external factors which affect transfer budgets and affect what you can spend. FFP, PSR, Champions League qualification, wage budget constraints, squad sizes, strategies. At the Elite Sports Group, I've got a little bit of information on that, on the payout to do with that. So, there's a lot around this that wasn't quite clearly thought of, planned, and properly put in place. There genuinely doesn't seem to be a strategy for A, clearing the squad, B, making sure that the wage budget is kept in check, C, making sure that there is a clear strategy on signings. It does seem very, very chaotic. That there is no real income revenue streams. There is no real plan for dealing with external factors like extra money to pay for Hampden, extra money to pay for Hampden pitch relays, etc., etc. Now, the issues we've got at this moment in time are A, that the squad is way too big. So we have to sell to buy. Fair enough. I don't think it's at all sustainable for this club to continue to add to a squad that currently sits at over 30 players to keep loading on to an already bloated wage budget. Now, obviously, working into that sell to buy, the wage budget is massively, massively over bloated at this football club. We have the highest wage bill in Scotland, yet we are not in the same class as our neighbours from across the city. That's an unpopular opinion, I know, but it's true. We've got too many very, very poor players like James Tavernier on £30,000 a week. Ben Davies, £27,000 a week. Rabbi Matondo, £24,000 a week. Cyril Dessers, £27,000 a week. Todd Cantwell, £25,000 a week. There are too many wage budget issues there. There are too many issues with the board, the previous board and the present board signing off on ridiculous contracts for players who are not worth what they're getting paid. James Tavernier is not worth £30,000 a week. The man has not got the talent to justify £30,000 a week. Ben Davies has not got the talent to justify £27,000 a week. So what I want to know is, why wasn't there a clear strategy put in place for sorting out these contracts, for sorting these contracts in the past, for putting into place sustainable contracts over a period of time? And that's not just John Bennett, that's Douglas Park, that's Stuart Robertson, that's Ross Wilson, that's Michael Beale. That's a whole succession of mismanagement by this board and by the management of this club. Now, the other strategy that is obviously we've got to take into account is FFP, PSR, whatever you want to call it, okay? Working within sustainability rules, working within European sustainability rules. There's a common lie going around, amongst Rangers fans that we're under watch from UEFA. Well, that actually isn't true. We're not under watch from UEFA. Okay, we're not under watch from UEFA in the same way that Manchester City are, that Newcastle United are, that other clubs around the world are. And also that we all know that in realistic terms, that PSR and FFP mean absolutely jack shit when it comes to football. The football clubs have clever ways to get round FFP, to get round PSR, to work their ways round that. Take Manchester City, for example. There are strategies they've used to substantially get round to spend way and above what they're earning on players. Real Madrid, another classic example of FFP that has been circumvented. Barcelona to some extent as well, although their financial situation is dire at this moment in time, not to do with FFP, but to do with the money coming into their club. So overall, we've got a position where we are in a chaotic situation going into the end of this window. That knowing we needed a rebuild, that there is no, to me, clear strategy here. There is two chaotic strategies that are running, and they're dependent on one possible outcome, a Champions League qualification. Now, there are other matters affecting this transfer budget. So first of all, obviously, is the Hampden debacle, or the Ibrox debacle, shall we say, where the ground is not going to be finished on time. There's obviously going to be extra costs on from that, and on costs on from extra time for development, for weight, etc., unless there are penalty clauses in the contract, which, we won't know about until Rangers accounts are released. Now, the other thing, obviously, was the financial dispute with Hummel, the Elite Sports Group, over the $9.5 million supposed reneging on the contract when Rangers switched from Hummel to Castor to supply kits. Now, Elite Sports Group, who are the group that are being run by creditors, been run by auditors because of the fact that they've gone into receivership, they've gone bankrupt. Now, they wouldn't be suing Rangers if they didn't think there was an opportunity to get back a substantial amount of money from the club. If you are a business that's in trouble and you look at a legal case and you think, shit, we've not actually got very little chance of winning this, you're not going to pursue it. You're just going to leave it. You're going to go, well, I'm sorry. Yes, there's a possibility we could win some money, but realistically, we're not going to get anything from this, so we just leave it. Now, it was £9.5 million at stake. According to reports, no one exactly knows the exact amount of the settlement. Now, what we do know is that it is probably going to be a 7-figure settlement, with Rangers paying 7-figure sum to Elite Sports Group in compensation for this contract issue that is between Elite Sports Group and Rangers. Now, at the moment, we don't know what that 7-figure sum is, whether that 7-figure sum is paid as one lump sum or is paid yearly or monthly as part of some deal that has been worked out over the deal that was done before the court case actually opened. But it is thought to be in the 7-figure numbers, which puts it as well over £1 million, which again is money that could have gone into squad redevelopment, into wages, or money that is in effect been wasted by poor decision making by the board. Now, I know the board, some people support what the board are doing and saying that they're running this thing, but it's for me, yes, there is a need to stay financially stable. We don't want to head back to 2012. We want to stay affordable. We want to stay with a situation where this club is sustainable long term, where this club generates income to buy players, where this club works within its means, as any family, any business has to. But the issue with me for the board is the decision making that has been very poor over the last 12 years. The decisions over contracts, the decisions over kit deals, the decisions over income streams, the division over building projects, the Australia debacle. There's a lot of decisions that have been made that have cost this club an awful lot of money that could have been used to be put into the playing squad to develop the playing squad. Money instead that's had to be used to solve legal cases, to do building projects, to pay compensation, to pay stadium rentals now, that could have been avoided with better management of the club. Now, going back to that list, like I said, so we know that obviously Champions League qualification is a big part of it, and that is a major problem when you are dependent on a factor that you cannot realistically control, and that if you are successful in that factor, you give yourselves 3 days to solve your problems. Now, yes, I know there's a possibility you could line up deals, and those deals could be concluded on successful qualification if clubs and players are willing to agree to said deals. Now, the other thing that seems to be sadly lacking from the club at this moment in time, in terms of bringing players in terms of addressing needs, in terms of actually getting deals over the line, is a clear strategy. A clear strategy in terms of wages, transfer fees, clearing the squad, making wages available, making fees available. Now, like I said, I think a big part of this for me is the fact that we don't have a real, genuine, proper footballing chief executive officer to run the club. John Bennett is doing that role. John Bennett couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery. So this is where we're up to at this moment in time. So the clear strategy, you know, there should have been at some point before this transfer window was really open, when it was obvious that Bisgrove was leaving, a chief executive officer approached, appointed, and then a meeting between the CEO, Niels Koppen, Philippe Clement, a strategy planned out where you had list A, list B, and you worked through the list A, you worked through list B, you lined up contracts, deals, wages. You therefore then worked on squad clearance. You worked on talking to other clubs, talking to agents, talking to them, being proactive in getting rid of these players, something that doesn't seem to have gone on due to the fact that, number one, these players are going to be very hard to shift when they're on massive deals that people are not going to pay. No one else is going to pay James Tavernier 30 grand. No one is going to pay Ben Davies 27 grand. There are ways around this. The club should have been working on those long term. Now, of course, they may have been done. I don't know. I'm just going on what I would have done, offering suggestions, asking questions. Now, questions that are coming out of this period for me are quite clear. One, if we don't qualify for the Champions League, does that mean that there are no future signings to be made? Two, do we still depend solely on sell to buy if we do qualify for the Champions League? If we do qualify for the Champions League, does that mean we are going to continue signing young players and some experienced players? If we do qualify for the Champions League, are we going to go solely down the experience route to bring in players enabling us to compete in the Champions League? Or if we don't qualify for the Champions League, are we going to go down the route of just signing young players for a trading model and forget that experience core that is needed and depend on and keep the experience core that we have got at this moment in time? You know, this is all stuff that should have clear answers. If you sat down with Philippe Clement, with John Bennett, with Niels Koppen, with anyone from the board or anyone from the business units at the club, Colleen Varani, whoever, and asked these questions, there should be clear, unequivocal answers to these questions. Now, I would like to bet with you there will not be, and there is not a clear strategy, and there is not a clear, unequivocal answer to these questions. Now, what I would love to do is sit down and I'd love to ask these questions. Now, I know that if I ask the questions, I'd probably get a whole lot of bullshit back and a whole lot of spin, you know, in a politician-y style, in a Keir Starmer bollocks kind of style, you know, but what strategy is in place? Where are we going with this signings? Now, I think what we should have done this year is not based our transfer strategy on the Champions League, but based our transfer strategy on competing in the domestic league. Looking at, right, what do we need to be successful in the SPFL and in the Scottish Cup to win domestic honours? That should be the sole focus of this year. And if we qualify for the Champions League, that is a massive bonus. The money is a huge bonus. We do need that money, agreed. But the focus needs to be on developing a squad and developing a core of players that can compete week in, week out and take over and get back to where we belong at the top of the Scottish game. That should have been the key strategy. That should have been the key aim, you know, not dependent on Champions League strategies, dependent on league, dependent on competing at the league level. Now, I would dare to suggest the level of player you need to be able to win the SPL is a lot less than the level of player you would need to compete in the Champions League due to the difference in standard. You know, beyond Hearts to some degree, who are decent, but beyond Celtic, there is very little other quality within our league. And realistically, we should be steamrolling all the other teams. So it should have been a clear strategy in place to actually win the league. So I would question, what strategy have they gone in with? Is it we need to qualify and compete in the Champions League strategy, or is it we need to compete domestically strategy? What is the strategy that is there at this moment in place? Now, for me, I honestly think there is a complete chaos around what is going on around this rebuild that is not the fault of the manager, that is not the fault of Niels Koppen, that is not the fault of the players, but is the fault of bad decisions that have been taken over running this club, over maintaining the stadium, over income revenue streams, over building projects, over the contracts, over wages, that long term have been very poor decisions that have put this club in a position where it is automatically largely financially behind Celtic, which is not acceptable. There needs to be a clear strategy that A, compete domestically, to B, put in place affordable contracts on affordable wages realistic to the league that we are currently playing in, C, a firm mixture of experienced and young players, D, a clear backing and supporting of the director of recruitment and the manager, football men who know football. Now, as chief executive officer, that's what you should be putting in place, that 4-point plan to push this club forward. Not listening to John Bennett, not listening to Halstead, not listening to the Parks, who know who you know, their football knowledge you could write on the back of this little square of paper and probably still have room to draw yourself a little picture. This is where we should be going. So what I want to know is, what is the strategy going forward, and how tight is this time window to get this right? That's just a few thoughts, guys. You may not have liked this content, you may not have liked the video, and that's fine if you didn't. I just wanted to put something out there different to what we've been talking about in terms of transfer links, in terms of the games we've been looking at. Where are we going? These are all questions that need to be answered over the next 22 days as we move towards the end of this window by this football club. Because as fans, we deserve answers. We deserve the truth. We deserve to be talked to like adults and treated like adults, treated like people who are backing this club to the hilt, week in, week out, putting our hard-earned money into the club, supporting this club, giving our time up to support this club. All stuff we love doing that we wouldn't change for the world. But the board need to start treating us with a bit more respect, and the club need to start treating the people that really matter with a little bit more respect. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. Guys, please obviously smash that sub. And on the way out, please obviously smash that like. And remember always, we are the people.